About 10 of us, including the bat people over here, people studying fungi, and myself studying insects. We're going back to Borneo to this particular park, which was studied in 1977 and 78. So what we want to do is to see if there's been any changes in the distribution and the abundance of species. In about a month, we'll be going on our big expedition to Borneo, to Gunung Mulu National Park. From about the first time I got there, it seemed to me that this would be the ideal place to do a multidisciplinary sort of expedition. That is to involve a number of ROM disciplines in natural history working together in the park. What that does is allow one to sort of share logistics. So I decided that well, it would be a good idea to try to get everybody over to the house for a little bit of a party before we go. It should be about 15 people crammed into my small little house here, and you know, these trips are sort of a mixture of two things. One, there's the science, and then there's the logistics. The science is actually the easy part, it's actually the fun part. The logistics is the more challenging part, and it's getting everybody where they need to be at the right time, getting everybody fed. And this is particularly difficult when you're on a tropical mountain.
Where that kind of line of shadows is, yep, between the first and second hunt.
Yeah, exactly. That's
that would make sense if you go up there and then around, because I don't remember going up and then a real drop and then up again.
I think he said they were specifically trying to avoid that.
Yeah.
And that was their reasoning for not taking the ridge.
Dark. So dark. You get up in the middle of the night, you crawl out of your hammock, and it takes a few minutes before you can even see the slightest hint of gray. It's just pitch black, and it's loud. The cicadas are just buzzing. It can be almost deafening. The Royal Geographic Society had done a survey of these groups, so we were going back to recreate the same collecting efforts that they had done 35 years later, to see if we got the same kind of results that they did.
At around dusk, we set out a mercury vapor light, fairly bright light, street light effectively, and then you just sort of set this light out in front of a white sheet, and this attracts the moths the same way as moths are attracted to your porch light. And what we do is just basically take them off the sheet, put them in a jar, and eventually they will die. The next morning we'll sit around the camp, take the moths, the specimens, the dead specimens, and basically stick an insect pin through them and put some sort of field code on them.
Most people don't give much thought to insects, but then when you start to think about it, they're an integral part of the food web. So many other organisms rely on insects as food. They're essential in terms of pollination of flowering plants. There's so many foods that we simply wouldn't have available to us if it weren't for insects. The diversity is off the scale. You could be looking at something and it could be an entirely new species just waiting to be discovered and named. And in some aspects it's going to be a shame, because some of these things are going to go extinct if we're not careful and we don't start protecting our natural resources.
Like most other groups, there's more insect species in the tropics than there are in the temperate regions. So that's where, you know, the pinnacles of diversity are in tropical rainforests. The park is pretty much pristine. There's no logging, there's very little hunting, there's no gold mining, there's no other sort of resource extraction. So in fact, if there are any changes in the elevational ranges of various species in the park, this is most likely due to climate change.
You sort of have a feel for a place, an area that you think bats will be flying. So I mean, if you just put your net up in the middle of the forest, it's like a needle in a haystack. But if you put it in a spot where you think bats will be flying, along trails, over little streams, sort of on the edge of the forest in an open area, that increases your chance of catching bats.
Yeah, so spin a lot for generally pale gray-brown.
To see it, catch it, handle it in the wild is an unbelievable experience. When you sit there and kind of stop and think about it, and then you really look at it, you just can't believe you're down here, that you're experiencing this. It's not a movie. This is the real thing.
Getting into the field, I think, is, at least for me, is one of the great perks of the job that I have. My area of expertise is looking at the evolution and biodiversity of mammals. Why are there so many species there? What are some of the explanations on, how those species got there? So it's good that people are, setting up national parks, nature reserve, but you also need to know, what you're protecting. So you want to find out, what species are there, what biodiversity is contained within an area, within a national park.
There's never been a baseline survey of fungi in Mulu or Borneo, frankly. There's an enormity of diversity we just don't have a clue about. And you come to a place like Borneo and you estimate that there's over 20,000 species of fungi in Borneo, and we've maybe documented 150, maybe. So you can see that the task is gigantic, but it's also what we find really stimulating. Because we go out there and every day we might be finding something new, something nobody's ever seen before. You get infected with this passion. It's hard to explain how intricate these organisms are, and mysterious, how successful they are, how important they are ecologically, and how really just magical and beautiful they are.
One of our main goals here at the museum, our raison d'etre, is to convey to the public in a meaningful way what it is that we do and why we do it. And a lot of people are amazed to find out that the galleries that they visit on a regular basis are based on the collections, our own collections, and that the stories that we're conveying to them are the result of the knowledge of all of the researchers back here in the curatorial part of the museum. So it's our attempt to make the museum come alive to our public.